Samantha knew that the situation between Martin and Smitty was on the brink of collapse. No longer the warm moments like before, but instead heavy silences and distant, avoiding looks. She longed to see them back together, not only because they had been her emotional support, but also because she understood that if she lost this connection, she would lose a part of the family she had struggled to find. But Samantha was also a practical person. She knew that emotions were not enough to heal. There needed to be a plan, a strategy sophisticated enough to make these two men overcome their pride and wounded past. She began to imagine the steps like a chessboard. Each piece had to be placed in the right place. Each move had to be skillful so as not to reveal the intention, and at the same time had to create situations that forced Martin and Smitty to face each other. The chance meetings that were actually arranged, the small events that they were forced to attend together, the moments when they couldn't avoid each other's eyes. He was no longer just a neighbor who cared about the community, but now he had become the one carrying a secret that could shake up every relationship here. Together with Naomi, Jacob followed small but important clues from the fragmentary stories of people who rarely paid attention to strange signs in old records. They discovered a faint connection between the stories of a woman named June and a mysterious disappearance. The more they dig, the more they sense that this thread leads to a truth larger than they imagined. And then, as they piece together the final pieces of information, Jacob and Naomi realize they are facing a truth that is enough to blow away the veneer of peace in Fairmont Crest. June is not just a homeless wanderer as many people have assumed, but is the biological mother of both Samantha and Tyrell. The shock hits Jacob square in the heart. He knows that if this truth is exposed, Samantha and Tyrell will face a storm of emotions, not only because they suddenly know about their biological mother, but also because it means their place in the family will be shaken. Martin and Smitty, already at odds and full of insecurities, will feel like they are losing the people they consider their children. This could wipe out any chance of reconciliation that Samantha has been working to build. Jacob is faced with a difficult choice, a painful question of timing and consequences. Telling them now would throw them into a whirlwind of chaos before they were ready, but keeping them would mean living with the pressure of a secret that was growing heavier. He had to consider every detail, every possible scenario if he revealed it or kept silent. Naomi, Jacob's companion, also felt the weight of this information. She knew that this was not just a story between Samantha and Tyrell, but also related to the stability of the entire community. Fairmont Crest was a place where relationships were tightly intertwined, where a secret revealed could lead to a series of unexpected consequences. Naomi feared that if this secret were to break out, long-standing conflicts would erupt, people who once trusted each other would turn their backs, and a wave of division would sweep through each house. Meanwhile, Samantha continued to carry out her plan, unaware that there was an emotional bomb lying right under her feet. She spends more time creating opportunities for Martin and Smitty to be together, cleverly weaving old memories into small events, hoping that when the good memories are brought back, they will find a reason to let go of the hurt. She believes that if they just open up again, everything will change. But Samantha doesn't know that any progress between them can be destroyed in an instant when the truth about June comes to light. Jacob began to feel the pressure of walking a tightrope. He knew he couldn't keep this secret forever, but he couldn't just expose it. He watched Samantha, Martin, and Smitty, looking for signs that they could handle the shock. But every time he saw the fragility in their eyes, he faltered. Worst-case scenarios played out in his mind. Martin angry and cutting off Samantha and Tyrell completely. Smitty falling into despair and retreating. Samantha feeling betrayed by Jacob's long-held secret. Tyrell lost his way and made the wrong choice. All were possibilities that could come true if he chose the wrong time. But time was not on Jacob's side. Every day that passed, the risk of someone else discovering and revealing the truth increased. Then he would lose control of the story, and the consequences would be more unpredictable. He begins to realize that he is not only the keeper of the secret, but also the one responsible for how that secret came to light. Every step from here must be carefully treading through a minefield. And while Jacob struggles with his decision, Samantha continues to plot every step, believing she is getting closer to mending Martin and Smitty, unaware that both her plans and the relationships between the people she loves most are on the brink of an earthquake that no one can avoid when it happens. Naomi did not stumble upon the secret by chance, but rather wove an unbroken red thread from scattered fragments of seemingly meaningless information, beginning with a faint line in the intake ledger of a relief station near Fairmont Crest, recording how a woman named June had come by on the coldest nights to ask for blankets for two small children before vanishing like smoke. The next link was an old case file from the Child Welfare Department, crossed out and marked for transfer, followed by an emergency clinic receipt where a nurse had dressed a small cut on the woman's wrist. There, Naomi happened to notice 3 engraved letters on a broken, cheap bracelet tucked inside the file cover, letters matching the initials of Samantha and Tyrell, as if fate had left a stubborn reminder that buried things still find their way to the surface. That bracelet became the bridge Naomi used to reach another path, hidden within the network of small churches that served free dinners, where an elderly volunteer remembered June's face peering through the window before entering, as though afraid of any familiar gaze catching hers. The volunteer also recalled that June often asked about someone named Regina, leading Naomi to dig up an old donation ledger where Regina's name appeared hurriedly in the margin with a short note. If you see this woman again, give her the address of a safer place. From that moment, Regina was no longer a dangling name but a knot in the thread, the long-lost sister who had once searched for 2 children in adoption records but never found them. It was Regina who handed Naomi the key to a small church's keepsake closet, where a faded photograph showed 2 children standing before a whitewashed wall marked by a lightning-shaped crack, identical to the wall of a temporary care center from that same year. Naomi knew the pieces fit when she matched the peeling paint and the slant of sunlight in the photo to archived city imagery online, confirming the winter sun's angle aligned exactly with the height of the center's window. From there, she reconstructed June's route during the last 2 months before the children slipped from her arms. Naomi completed the picture by phoning a retired relief worker, who confirmed having seen June leave with her wrist wrapped in white gauze and her eyes red-rimmed, after saying she could no longer keep the 2 children. All of this was not a single discovery but a chain of evidence so tightly interwoven that Naomi could not look away. When she laid it out for Jacob, both understood the next question was no longer if it was true, but when, how, and who would first absorb the quake that truth would unleash, because in Fairmont Crest, every tremor beneath the surface sent tidal waves crashing above when it touched family, love, and the fragile sense of belonging balanced like crystal at the edge of a table. Samantha and Tyrell stood at the eye of the storm, unaware, still living with memories of warm dinners, birthday candles, and cakes clumsily but lovingly prepared by Martin and Smitty, mingled with scattered dreams of a woman who smelled of cheap soap and cold wind, kissing their foreheads before vanishing at dawn. The choice ahead was not simply between adoptive parents and birth mother, but between a present that had taken shape and a past demanding to redefine who they were, between safety built from countless ordinary days and a deep wound in their identity calling them back to an origin that had never healed. Samantha would be drawn toward June first, driven by the need to understand why she had been abandoned, to touch an answer that might stitch shut the wound that had never stopped bleeding. Tyrell might linger closer to Martin and Smitty, bound by the steady rhythm of their home, the gentle rules, and the firm hands that pulled him back from rash impulses, but neither could escape the pull of blood. Naomi knew that any decision had to be timed to allow emotions to settle rather than erupt, or Samantha's plans for Martin and Smitty would collapse on the first day. Martin was so sensitive to loss that even hearing the words "birth mother" could tilt the ground beneath him, while Smitty reacted by clinging tighter to what he loved, sometimes so tightly it suffocated. Between those opposite defenses lay an old fault line Samantha was trying to patch with small gestures. That was why, when Samantha leaned, even briefly, toward June, Martin would read it as an unspoken farewell and retreat into silence, avoiding rooms heavy with memories for fear every object might become evidence of something he was about to lose. Smitty, by contrast, would hurl himself into repairs, arrangements, lists, and phone calls to anyone who might help, as if the problem were a broken machine needing parts replaced. That opposite pacing would push them further apart, alarming Samantha as she realized her reconciliation plan had exposed the one subject neither dared confront. The fear of being replaced, the fear of not being enough to hold together a family they had not birthed but had chosen every single day. Tyrell, while trying to mediate, would see he had his own choice to make, that he could not be both the measure of safety for Martin and Smitty and the compass for Samantha if he did not first know where he stood. In the first days after the truth emerged, a new orbit would take shape, with planned visitation schedules and small trust tests. Asking June if she remembered their teachers' names, Tyrell's small knee scar, or Samantha's odd fondness for dim golden night lamps. Every correct answer would thicken the invisible cord between them. Every hesitation would cut into June's guilt. Regina would stand at the threshold, trying to bridge with the hard realism of someone who had once failed to find these children and now only wanted to keep everyone from hurting each other further. Naomi, in her role as gatekeeper, would pace the rhythm, enforcing pauses between meetings so Martin and Smitty could breathe, and Samantha and Tyrell could digest what they were learning about themselves, reminding Jacob that rushed decisions breed unintentional betrayals. Instead of forcing a binary choice, they would need to accept the hard truth that some families do not require choosing one to lose the other, that new structures can be built across chasms if those involved take one careful step at a time. The worst-case scenario, that Samantha and Tyrell might go entirely to June and sever ties with Martin and Smitty, would only come if fear replaced dialogue, if silence became default. That was why Naomi pushed for a cautious blending, insisting that all pivotal interactions happen with a trusted third party present, anchored by small but concrete commitments like alternating dinner nights and open weekends for shared activities without the weight of nostalgia. Bit by bit, Naomi would help Martin see that June's presence did not steal his role, but invited him to be a less guarded version of himself. Help Smitty see that not everything needed to be held in a chokehold, that some things required loosening so others could step closer. Help Samantha believe she was not betraying anyone by seeking her origins. Help Tyrell speak his fears before they hardened into anger. If the day came when Samantha and Tyrell leaned fully toward June, Martin and Smitty's reaction would be the ultimate test. Martin might crumble like a building with its beams pulled if no one held him, but if he listened to Naomi and chose to stand firm, he would discover that fatherhood is not about possession but endurance. Smitty, if he let go of the repair impulse that veered into control, could become the anchor that truly held everyone with steady, gentle order. In the worst case, they might part for a time, unable to bear each other's reactions, but if that distance was framed as a phase of adjustment rather than an ending, it could help them return with fewer illusions about their roles. In the better case, Samantha would come back from her search to place a new bracelet beside the broken one as a symbol of two bloodlines and nurturing lives entwined. Tyrell would divide his weekends without feeling torn. June would learn to apologize through sustained actions rather than a single emotional absolution. Regina would keep managing schedules and defusing sparks before they became fires. Jacob would stop tormenting himself over the secret and accept his role as the one who opened the door, then stepped aside. Naomi would look back at the chain she built and know that truth does not destroy when supported by structure. Martin and Smitty would not break, but transform. From two men afraid of loss into two men wide enough to hold space. From a defensive bond into a collaborative one, where they no longer needed to prove who mattered more but only ask what they could do today to make the children feel more whole than yesterday. In that version, Samantha and Tyrell's choice would no longer be a blade cutting in two, but an extra span in a bridge, where the past does not erase the present, and an expanded family is not the failure of the old one, but proof that love, when patient and well-structured, can rearrange itself to fit a new truth.